It's a big transition to bring your baby home, and really coming back and acknowledging that for both parents as a doula is pretty important. When partners get home, and life is starting as a family, I'm about all in. So, working around a 24-hour cycle, I call them, not clock. Covering clocks up is actually a really good idea. Having very few visitors around, and really solidifying those first couple of weeks as a family. I think that dads, if they can, take time off, take 2-3 weeks off if you can, and be a part of those cycles and really get to understand your baby's language and cues together, and be involved with, right, dads can't breastfeed, but lots of other gorgeous things you can do with your baby to bond as well. So I encourage dads to bath with the baby, which is really nice. Change the baby's nappy, burp your baby after a feed, and be a part of that love bubble.
A lot of fathers will have concerns about what it's going to be like to be a father. Will they be a good enough dad? So sometimes there can be self-doubt there, or fathers reflecting on their childhood or how they were parented. Sometimes fathers during the pregnancy period also already starting to mourn the loss of something in their life. So if a father's used to getting up in the morning and running 20 kilometres every morning from 4 o'clock in the morning, they with a baby around, they know they might not be able to do that. So changes in routines or things that fathers enjoy.
Really critical for parents to understand before they get handed a baby. Critical to that is how immature that baby is. And if this isn't clearly understood, if you're still in the old-fashioned idea that babies are sentient little beings that can manipulate you, and if you're not the boss, you'll get into all kinds of trouble, and you have to put down a firm routine and schedule, otherwise your life will fall apart. If you are in receipt of that kind of information, which you often might be from the previous generation, it can be a disaster if you're trying to, your expectations for the baby is too out of whack with the reality. So I tried to bring parents down to the biological reality of their baby. They only have 25% of their brain formed by the time they're born. And then they start, once they've escaped from that little pelvis, then they start to pile on neural tissue at a fantastic rate. 1,000 to 10,000 connections a second is being made in their little brains. And the connections relate to, obviously, genetics, but it also relates to how they're being brought up and how they are being managed and how their behavior is being reinforced or inhibited. And that is where parenting, modern parenting, comes into its own, because we now realize that how babies are wired up for a lifetime of happiness or not depends on what happens in those early months and years when they are just laying down all this basic stuff.
The postnatal period is absolutely exhausting for everybody, but particularly for a breastfeeding mum. So, I think it's really important for dads to be aware that as tired as they are, their partner is probably even more tired. And so she's going to need your support like she's never needed your support before. And that can be a bit of a discomforting feeling, I think, for some men. Is, it can feel like pressure, or it can feel like they're not going to be good enough. There's, can be some anxiety, I think, for some dads about being their partner's main support person. So you're going to need support so that you can support her as well. In terms of supporting her, the sort of things that you can do is adjust your expectations of what she's going to be able to achieve. Looking after a baby and feeding a baby is 24/7 at the beginning. And so anything else like housework or meal preparation or tidying up is on top of that. you know, she's not going to be able to do both for you know, some period of time.
After baby comes, it's really important that you're kind of there to help with their bonding. So you give them every opportunity to have really good, strong bonding time, because that allows the baby to attach to mum. Facilitating recovery is essentially one of your main roles, because depending on the birth, she may, you know, take some time to recover physically and emotionally. So you're trying to work out ways that you can facilitate her recovery. Maybe you're doing a little bit extra around the house at this time, and you're trying to make sure that she's in the best state of, you know, potential recovery that you can possibly manage. Getting to know baby as time goes on, you're trying to also gain your attachment. So what are some of the things you think you might be able to do to kind of build that attachment and kind of get to know your baby?
Well, Chloe and I can go for walks and I can hold the baby with our baby holder device, and I can put the baby in that when I do gardening, because I love gardening, and I can sing songs that I like to the baby. I can read the stories that I've been reading to the baby now while it's in Chloe's womb.
That's nice,
Cool. Those kind of things. I think would be a good starting point.
Yeah, and also maybe changing nappies
or
bathing as well.
Yeah,
you know?
The
and
obvious
while you're bathing, you're still talking to them, and you're kind of, you know, making noises and mimicking them as well. So if they're kind of making a noise, you're kind of, you know, responding to that, and that way you can kind of build your attachment and get to know them.
So the system my wife and I have now is that I take her about 9 o'clock till 11, and then from 4 to 7. So it means I get time in the day to just work on my music and all of that, and she has time throughout the day to do the things she needs to do as well. And that, you know, taking her for walks is really has been the best thing for me, because it's something to do. It's not like I just have to sit with her and just because she gets agitated, you know, she doesn't want to be in one place. So going for a walk is like a stimulating activity for her. It's good for me to get out of the house, and I find that it just naturally, just being there with her and like having her strapped against my chest, that's been like a really easy, natural way for us to connect.
So I usually take the dogs for a walk and her for a walk as well, just around the block to get out and let Katie some time for herself. And I'll just even throughout the day, because I'm home working, I'll just pick her up and just have some dad time with her whenever I want. So that luxury potentially I wouldn't have had before through COVID. So that for me has been a massive bonus. And obviously I'll change a nappy, sort of just whenever sort of take it in turns, and I'll get the early night shift, and then Katie will kick in, and if she needs a feed throughout the night. So we'll just try and manage who does what throughout the night. We sort of worked it out.
You know, if we're talking about dads who are doing some great stuff, it's probably, you know, it's important to talk about the other side and what I've seen and how dads might be in that postpartum period that might not be helpful. I think the biggest one that I see is the absent dad, and I do understand that in some cases it is difficult for dads to take a lot of time off in that initial postpartum period. But I feel like they miss out on so much when they do that, when they're not there. Mums struggle because they've got no support in the home. Breastfeeding can become more challenging, can set up resentment, you know, dad's leaving all the time, you know, stuck at home in inverted commas with the baby. And dads in those situations not ensuring that there is other support if they're not going to be there.
It's hard work. It's physically and emotionally exhausting. Early motherhood, parenting, that kind of thing. It is exhausting, and you draw on your support networks to help out. You know, your mum, your dad, her mum, her dad, And you know, as many people as you know, to try and build that village, because we don't necessarily rely on our village anymore. We kind of decide that we have to do everything ourselves. And so you'll be continuing on working?
I will have 4 weeks off.
4 weeks off,
and maybe another 2 weeks of annual leave if I feel like I need it.
I would suggest you do.
Yeah.
It's just the best time to be around.
I've been thinking about that more and more.
I would strongly advise that you make that extra effort to be there.
Yeah.
So when you go out to work and you come back, you can say, hey, what have you learned?
Yeah.
What have you learned about the baby since I've been gone? What did you know? If there's anything that you know she finds a hack, a sleep hack, or you know how to dress her or him better, you know, or more efficiently, that kind of thing. You learn from her, and that also boosts her confidence that she's doing great work.
Some mums can try and show that they're coping really well when in fact they're not coping. So some mums can, you know, give off the you know, the aura that they've got it all under control, that they don't need help, that they're, you know, that they're doing fine, because there's a lot of pressure on them to be a good mother. And so they can even sort of say, no, I don't need your help, when in fact they do, but they're going to burn out that way. So just be aware that, you know, you want to be involved. You are this baby's other parent. You know, you want to be a parent, you want to learn, you want to make mistakes, you want to laugh about it, you want to stuff up, you know, like it's all okay. It's, you know, becoming a parent is about being a learner and not an expert, and you want to be able to share that experience with your partner and making mistakes together and stuff up and laugh about it together.
I think one of the biggest challenges for dads today is the fact that fathers are expected to, and rightly, it's a 50-50, both partners are equally involved, but that's not necessarily the upbringing or the role modelling that they had from their own fathers. For example, you know, my mum was always the caregiver, the hands-on, and my father would be out working, and I think a lot of even dads today grew up with a similar sort of role model to that. But also talking openly about each other's expectations around how do both of our upbringings, how is that influencing on what role we're going to be playing in bringing up this baby? How hands-on will both of us be? What, you know, I think sometimes we don't necessarily stop and reflect about this and what impact that might have. And if we don't have those conversations, I think it can create tensions, because we're expecting the other partner to do this, but that's really because of our own upbringing or our own expectations.